Hello everyone. Today we are taking up a aircraft carrier from Ironblood. But this is a PR aircraft carrier. So, as the character in the background, really suggests that we are talking about August von Parseval. August von Parseval has a really interesting background because, in my memory, she is based on World of Warships German's Tier 8 aircraft carrier August von Parseval. Well, how these both work is in their own dimension. But the artist really did some interesting work to create a character like August von Parseval to us. But before we go to their stats, you can actually find her in Shipyard and Laboratory, and if I correctly remember what tier she was, she is PR4 priority 4 category. Excuse me. So, now that we are in PR Shipyard, how about we take a look at her stats in here before we go to the fleet. So we're going to compare her stats in the ones that we have in a Azurlane wiki. Of course, once you oath your ship girl with 100% affinity, the stats will increase by 3%. So how does she has health? Well, once you reach August von Parseval in level 125, her HP increases 7,402. That's a really good health for aircraft carrier. She has no firepower and torpedo. Basically, she has no secondary armament at all. Aviation is 439. She has mediocre AA in Ironblood standards. It's decent. 334. Her reload is then 121. Her speed, her evasion is 49. Her armor is medium. So AP can do some damage. So that's gonna be good against light guns. Her speed is 91. Her accuracy is 111. Her luck, after you fate simulate her, is 15. And her oil cost is 14. Second of all, her gear. Her first slot is a fighter efficiency, is 120%, and once you upgrade her, she will then reach 140%. She gets 2 fighters. Her dive bombers as well in second slot goes from 105 all the way to 110%. She gets 3 dive bombers As for her third slot that has torpedo bombers, excuse, excuse me. Her torpedo bombers in third slot, she has 3 torpedo bombers. As for the augment module, scepter and hunting bow. Now for the skills. Hex Principle of Insight. Of course, there are 2 versions of it after you Fate Simulator. So the original is Hex Principle of Insight. When this ship launches an airstrike, 75% chance to inflict 2, 3, 4 damage to all enemies and gradually reduces their speed to 0 over 2.5 seconds. Then returning to normal instantly after 1 second. After you Fate Simulator, when this ship launches airstrike, 100% chance to inflict 234 damage to all enemies. And gradually decrease their speed to 0 over the next 2.5 seconds. Enemies remain at 0 speed for additional 1.5 seconds, after which this debuff expires and their speed returns to normal. Her second skill is Principle of Shattering. Hex Principle. When this ship launches an airstrike, launches additional level 10 airstrike, inflicts armor break to all light and medium armor enemies hit by this airstrike. Her third skill, Hex Principle of Dominance. Increases this ship's damage dealt to light cruisers and heavy cruisers by 20%. When this ship is equipped with Ironblood aircraft, increases this ship aviation and reload by 12% and fighter efficiency by 10%. And because this is PR ship, they have a special skill that increases their damage towards sirens. Now then, let's take a look at her in the fleet formation. Currently, I have this kind of interesting fleet. I have me officer that has aviation buff and then Ironblood buff. However, because Ironblood is really lacking me officer that actually works in commanding part, it's gonna be difficult. However, the fleet, we are going to do voiceover video in map 13.4 where Taiho boss fight is. So I have Duisburg, Otto von Alvensleben and Mainz as a vanguard, and then August von Parseval, Crash Zeppelin and Peter Strasser. So what about her equipment? Well, in my case, it differs. Why? Well, there is a kicker. Iron Blood is lacking some decently good dive bombers. So I am using either Junkers. They carry 5 bombs, yes. But it's not enough. They are elite. Yes. But because she has dive bomber and torpedo bomber after the fighter. So that really makes dive bombers not useful. So making some good dive bomber in August case is recommended. So how to make her work in this scenario? Well, just looking at her skills, Hex Principle of Insight launches airstrike 100% chance, inflicting 234 damage to all enemies, and gradually reduce their speed to 0 or 2.5 seconds. So we are going to utilize that. Of course, if we have this, increases airstrike damage by 4%, but increases airstrike loading time by 4%. This sounds good. So I'm gonna keep him for now. As for their second skill, this is important because if we want to actually do damage to light armor and medium armor enemies, there are choices from Iron Blood. What are they? Well, as for the August case, we have new fighter for Iron Blood, but this does not have rockets. But Iron Blood now have 2 types of aircrafts that can launch rockets. But there is also a difference. The BF-109G version actually fires 4 AP rockets. Armor modification against medium is 140. So this is really effective against medium armor enemies and slightly decent against light armor enemies, but it struggles against heavy armor. This is a fighter, so it also has some machine guns on it. But because BF-109 is a attack aircraft, this only launches on manual. So if you want to intercept enemies in the air, you either take the fighter that does not have rockets, or if you want to sacrifice that AA capability, take the manually fired plane. It's just a compensation if you want to do some damage. There is also a second choice. Prototype FWV-109A6/R6 variant. This one has plenty amount of machine guns. But in return, it fires 2 WFR-GR21 rockets. These are basically HE rockets, high explosive rockets, that deals 300 damage And it has armor modification 110 to light and medium, and slightly more than an AP to heavy armor, each has 80. If you want to do equally more damage, then this is aircraft for you. If you want to heavily focus on medium armor, then BF 109G version is for that. It fires 4 AP rockets, and you have 2 fighters that gets launched from August von Parseval. So there's a choice there, of course. But if you really want to focus on just making her usable against other airplanes, it's either carrier-based new aircraft Focke-Wulf 109 TG3/R1 or Messerschmitt ME155A or prototype XF5U Flying Flapjack. Thanks to its low speed, it can actually stay longer on the field. It has 2 1,000-pound bombs and then machine guns. Of course, the Ironblood's new fighter can actually slightly faster, but it can do the job. It can make a job done. So there are plenty of choices. And of course, in my case, I have aviation maintenance manu. I want her to deal more damage. As for a torpedo bomber, it has Junker 87D4. It has weak 3 torpedo Ironblood torpedoes. These are going directly towards the enemies. They do not create any sort of wall torpedo. These are aimed ones. If you want to deal some damage, so there are Wyvern. It's superly stupid expensive to build. Or if you want to do something ludicrous and take prototype VIT2, Northern Alignment torpedoes, plain, or just for the memes, FI-167, or really packing punch, Sky Pirate from Eagle Union. These are also really good as well. But for Northern Alignment, it's just slightly behind, but because it fires 6 torpedoes, so there's a plenty amount of torpedoes coming at the enemy's way. So you have choices to make him work. As for the skills, if this ship has at least 1 Ironblood aircraft, her fighter slot efficiency increases by 10%, so there is that noticeable change right over here, 150%. But we are now talking about aircraft here, aircraft carrier here. So I have few specialists to support him. First is Peter Strasser, if I remember correctly. Iron Wings, Blood Pinions. If there are 4 or more Autoplot ships in the same fleet, reduces the time needed for your Autoplot carriers and light carriers to reload their first 3 airstrike by 10%. So this is a huge help for Peter. As for the second fleet, we have Bismarck Sway. Her Reborn Temple of Iron, if I remember correctly. If the flagship on the second fleet is Ironplot ship, also increases the aviation of that fleet's Ironplot CVs carriers, Ironplot carriers by 15%. So this is also helping August von Parseval in return. But let me check what did did Fritz Rume give any kind of support? Well, because the second fleet is entirely aircraft carriers, so Fritz Rume seems to give, while this ship is afloat, 16 seconds after the fleet this ship is not in enters the battle, fires level 10 supporting barrage. So, not bad at all. Let me change over here real quick. Well, we have Crash Zeppelin. She is really good, giving the decreases the damage of all Ironplot ships in your fleet taken by 15%. So, she is more durable, just enough. But enough. Well, the Vanguard is just there to make sure that airplanes are shot down. But I have... Okay, I might confuse what I have in mind with the other ship that I actually support the carriers. But of course, let us not forget our lovely Biscuit. The original Biscuit. If we do it like this, if we take Crash Zeppelin and take Bismarck to the flagship spot, and Will of the Ironplot. Increase the main gun torpedo and airstrike crit rate of all your Ironplot ships 20%. Increases their reload 12%, anti-repeat damage by 40%. So that is important. And also unwavering strength. When this ship fires salvo while sorted as the flagship, 70% chance to fire special barrage. Also increases the damage of all your Autobot carriers by 20%. If we want to utilize that, then we need to think carefully what to do. Because we now lost Crash Zeppelin damage reduction capabilities. But we have Peter Strasser to actually give the speed and 10% for 3 airstrikes. It's an unfortunate trait, but if we combine Bismarck and Bismarck Sway, this fleet is effective in aviation side, although we only have 2 aircrafts. Now then, I guess we have rambled enough. So I'm gonna talk about more about my opinions about August von Parseval in a voiceover. So I see you there. Alright. Hello guys, voiceover Lucky Mies over here. Before we go to the review video, let's take a look at her skins. Currently she has 2 skins. But as for her character design is really interesting. She sits on a stone throne made from stone, and then behind her is a robotic dragon. That is her rigging, which has wings that looks like flight decks. That is also equipped 105mm AA guns with those special armor schemes. And the design is based from World of Warships August von Parseval. And the artist did really well to actually design character like this. But if we want to see her full clothing design, in loading screens there you can actually see August von Parseval standing. There are multiple loading screens in Wikipedia where you can actually see August standing. And there you can actually see the design. But her carrier design is based from all the way from Crash Zeppelin Hall in World of Warships. But in August's case, she is not equipped with 150mm guns, secondary guns, which completely removes her close quarter combat ability and self-defending capabilities. But it also, I have to point out, that despite historical accuracy, Crash Zeppelin in Azur Lane does not have secondary armament capability, despite armed with 150mm secondary guns, and there's plenty of them historically accurately. The sad thing is, although Zeppelin did get augment module, all she got was this die bomber dropping thing, despite not giving her ghost secondary gun. That could have actually increased connection to her 150mm gun secondary armament designed plans. In August von Parseval case, she is fully committed towards aviation power. As for her skins, I have to say these skins look really well designed. The made one and then the free time one. But how does August work in current Azur Lane 2025? Well, we are at the start of the 2025. I say she is performing in her own way really well. What is that? It is, when you take a look at her skills, they are compressed in two categories. First off is reducing enemy speed, and second is making her dealing more damage to enemy light and medium armor types. And now that we have two plenty planes that have capability not just drop bombs, but also ability to fire AP or HE rockets, armor piercing rocket, or high explosive ones. And this makes her very unique, giving her, if you combine Peter Strasser's slowing speed capabilities with August, you can fully stop the enemy. If timing is right, the airstrike will fully be utilized. Airstrike's power is fully performed once the enemy stop moving. And here's the thing, if you want to use August's skill against light and medium armor types, you sacrifice that automatic aircraft AA defense capability. And what is that? If you give her fighter that has no rockets, that plane automatically is being sent to shoot down other airplanes that are flying across the screen towards your backline, excuse me. And if you give her the rocket firing plane, that AA capability only works when it is launched manually. And it also is affected to reload time. So there is also that. But thanks to the Peter's skill that actually reduces first 3 airstrikes 10% reload time, is really helping August to perform faster. And after I recorded this back video, I forgot the name for it in English. This video over here, I changed August ultra rare Eagle Union dive bomber into Royal Navy Firefly dive bomber, and then Iron Plus torpedo bomber, that Junker one, into Eagle Union's XTB2U1 Sky Pirate, or Air Pirate, Sky Pirate, that torpedo bomber. And with this, the dive bomber no longer aims. Every torpedo goes straight line, hoping to hit something. So there is that special case. And I also removed that menu maintenance into into the beacon, homing beacon, excuse me, that it decreases airstrike loading time by 4%, if that is correct, if that is a thing. XTB2D1 Sky Pirate torpedo bomber from Eagle Union. And with these changes, she was also performing really well. And thanks to the Romplot flagship Bismarck and then Bismarck II from the other fleet giving buff to these carriers, and Peter Strasser added to the group, it increases August's performance, making her work in these categories, but she can be outperformed by other nations. Let me remind you that Ironblood has never been the greatest carrier fleet. Eagle Union and Sakura Empire might have the best ones we ever have, but August von Parseval is performing only these categories, reducing speed and increasing damage towards light and medium armor type, which makes her unique dealing these enemies. And it also performs against mob fleets. I did use her against boss fleets sometimes, because some cases boss flagship happened to be either destroyer or cruiser. But when it becomes the carrier or battleship, it's the other thing. If the carrier enemy is medium armor type, then that is extra damage to that armor type. As for the Vanguard, I do have to say I did some miscalculation. If I had Duisburg, Magdeburg and Regensburg in the Vanguard, they would have helped helped a lot defending against airplanes. Because Mainz, Otto and Duisburg is not enough to take down. So there is a slight miscalculation from my end. How is she today? Well, it all depends how do you want to build her. Do you want her to be good against these medium and light armor types? And do you want to combine her skill with Peter's to reduce the speed? And let's not forget, Aegir also has this speed reduction capability with her torpedoes. So there is that play as well, giving August more chances to deal damage to these two armor types. And it all depends how do you build her. That's all. All depends how do you build her. I have to say this is my second try, because my first try was also good as this, but there was some reason a small humming behind the background. I guess one of my microphone cable was touching something that was vibrating with the my computer's fan. But anyway, it all depends how do you build her. Thanks to these airplanes we have today, AP rockets, HE rockets, and different airplanes varieties to give her more chances to deal damage. And she is performing really well, with speed reduction and damage increase towards light and medium. Well, apologies for this long video, but I say we have finally come to the end of this. My name is LuckyMias205. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a happy weekend.
時は満ちた。